The moment I walked into that courtroom, the air felt thick enough to choke on. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting that sickly pale glow that makes everyone look guilty of something. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my temples. I was about to lose everything: my house, my savings, my dignity, and worst of all, my son. But as I approached the wooden railing separating the gallery from the courtroom, I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. Laughter. Not a nervous giggle, not a whisper. Full, open, mocking laughter. I looked to my left. There she was, my wife of 11 years, Sarah. She was wearing the pearl necklace I bought her for our 10th anniversary. And right next to her, with his arm casually draped over the back of a chair, was David, her personal trainer, the man she told me not to worry about. They were both staring at me like I was a clown who had just tripped on his own shoelaces. David leaned over and whispered something in Sarah's ear. She covered her mouth and laughed again. Her eyes met mine. There was no guilt in them, no shame, just victory. She thought she had won. She thought I was walking into a slaughterhouse. She didn't know that Judge Eleanor Vance had a reputation for one thing: hating liars. And she really didn't know what I had found in the basement the night before. Let me rewind 3 months. I'm Mike. I'm a contractor. I build houses for a living. Solid hands, solid back, solid heart. I married Sarah right out of college. She was the pretty girl who worked at the bookstore. We built a life, a modest house in a decent neighborhood, one son, Leo, who is 7 years old and has a laugh that sounds like a bell ringing. I worked 60-hour weeks so Sarah could stay home and write her blog about mindful living. She posted pictures of smoothie bowls and yoga poses while I was on the roof in July heat. I didn't mind. That was the deal. I provided. She nurtured. Then David showed up. He was a client, a rich guy who wanted a home gym installed. Sarah was there when he came by to sign the papers. He was tan. He drove a Mercedes. He had that easy, lazy smile of someone who's never had to worry about a mortgage. 3 weeks later, Sarah started going to the gym, then late meetings, then girls' trips that lasted 5 days. I'm not stupid. I smelled the cologne on the collar of her jacket. I saw the text messages flash on the screen when she left it on the kitchen counter. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces, but I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I went to a lawyer. The lawyer told me the truth, and I'll state, because Sarah didn't work a real job for 10 years, I was looking at massive alimony, massive. Plus, she was threatening to take Leo. She said I was an absent father. She said my construction job was dangerous and unstable. She filed for divorce first. That was her power move. She claimed emotional abuse. She claimed I was never home. She claimed I had a temper. I watched her sit in family court with a perfect poker face, dabbing a dry eye with a tissue. The mediator looked at me like I was the villain. I offered her the house. I offered her half my 401k. I offered to pay for Leo's private school. I begged her. Please, I said, just don't take my son. She looked at me over her coffee cup. You should have thought about that before you worked all those weekends, Mike. That's when I knew. This wasn't about fairness. This was about punishment. She wanted to erase me. The final hearing arrived, the day I showed up in court. Sarah and David were seated at the plaintiff's table. David wasn't even party to the divorce, but there he was, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my first truck. He was acting like he had already moved into my house. He even had the audacity to wave at me. My lawyer, a tired man named Mr. Henderson, whispered, "Stay calm. The judge is sharp. Don't react." But then Sarah stood up to give her testimony. She painted a picture of me that I didn't recognize. She said I was controlling. She said I monitored her spending. She said I isolated her from friends. Every lie landed like a slap. And then she started laughing. Judge Vance asked her why she moved David into the marital home before the divorce was final. Sarah looked at the judge and said, "Well, Your Honor, Mike was never home anyway. I needed emotional support." She giggled. David joined her. The courtroom deputy shifted his weight. A few people in the gallery looked uncomfortable, but Sarah didn't care. She thought she was untouchable. Judge Vance didn't laugh. She just removed her glasses and polished them slowly. She looked at Sarah for a long, quiet moment. Then she looked at me. "Mr. Carter, do you have anything to present before I consider the alimony calculation?" My throat was dry. I told my lawyer about the text messages. I told him about the affair. The texts are easy to fake. He said we needed hard evidence. I didn't have hard evidence until the night before. I had gone back to the house to get Leo's baseball glove. Sarah had changed the locks, but I still had the key to the back door. The house was dark. I walked through the kitchen, and that's when I saw it. The basement light was on. I never used the basement. It was a damp, creepy place with old furniture and boxes, but the light was on. I crept down the stairs, and there on the old workbench was a laptop. David's laptop. He must have left it there when they went out to dinner. It was open. It was logged into his email. I shouldn't have looked, but when you're about to lose your child, ethics become a little blurry. I scrolled through his inbox, and my hand started to shake. David wasn't just a rich guy with a tan. David was a fraud. I found emails, dozens of them, between David and Sarah going back 2 years before he was even my client. They had planned this, not the affair, the financial ruin. The emails detailed everything. David was a professional hometown thief. He targeted married women in wealthy suburbs. He seduced them. Then he convinced them to divorce their hard-working husbands. He had a lawyer on retainer who specialized in exploiting alimony laws. Sarah wasn't a victim. She was a co-conspirator. The emails showed her laughing about me. "Mike is so tired. He falls asleep on the couch by 9 p.m. He'll never see it coming." Another email detailed how she planned to claim I hit her. There was no truth to it. It was a strategy. I sat on the basement floor in the dark. I didn't cry. I just sat there. The silence was louder than any sound I've ever heard. The woman I loved, the mother of my child, she was selling my life for a share of David's trust fund. I didn't sleep that night. I downloaded everything. I printed 200 pages. I put them in a binder. And then I walked into court. Back in the courtroom, Sarah's still smiling. David is checking his watch, bored. Judge Vance looks at me. "Mr. Carter, evidence?" My lawyer, Mr. Henderson, looks confused. He didn't know about the laptop. I reached into my bag and pulled out the thick binder. I stood up. My voice was quiet but steady. "Your Honor, I would like to submit Exhibit A. It is a collection of emails between the plaintiff and Mr. David Cross. They date back 26 months. Sarah stopped smiling. David sat up straight. "Objection," Sarah's lawyer shouted. "Hearsay, improperly obtained." Judge Vance raised one hand. "Overruled for now. I want to see what this is." I walked the binder to the bailiff. The bailiff handed it to the judge. For 5 minutes, no one spoke. Judge Vance flipped through the pages. Her face didn't change, not a flicker. Sarah was whispering frantically to her lawyer. David was texting under the table. Then Judge Vance looked up. She looked directly at David. "Mr. Cross, I notice your name appears in these emails discussing a fee structure. Are you a licensed divorce consultant?" David opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Judge Vance turned to Sarah. "And Mrs. Carter, in an email dated March 12th, you write, 'I don't care about the house. I just want to bleed him dry so David and I can move to Florida.' Is that accurate?" Sarah turned white, ghost white. The laughter from an hour ago was gone, replaced by the sound of a woman realizing she had just stepped into a bear trap. Judge Vance didn't laugh. She didn't need to. "I am denying the request for alimony. In fact, I am ordering a full forensic audit of Mrs. Carter's finances and Mr. Cross's involvement in this marriage." Sarah burst into tears, real tears this time. "But, Your Honor, I have no income." Judge Vance looked at her over her glasses. "You should have thought about that before you conspired to commit fraud on this court." Then she turned to me. "Mr. Carter, you are granted full physical custody of your son, Leo. Mrs. Carter will have supervised visitation until a psychological evaluation is completed." I felt the air leave my lungs. Full custody. David stood up. "This is ridiculous. I'm not even married to her." Judge Vance smiled. It was a cold smile. "No, Mr. Cross,
but the IRS might be interested in those unreported consultant fees you charged Mrs. Carter. I am referring these documents to the United States Attorney's Office." David sat down, hard. I walked out of that courtroom a free man, but it didn't feel like winning. It felt like survival. Sarah tried to talk to me in the parking lot. She was crying, mascara running down her face. "Mike, please, I didn't mean it. I was confused." I looked at her. I remember the laughter, the sneer, the emails calling me a fool. "You laughed at me, Sarah, in front of a judge. You laughed." She had no answer for that. 3 months later, David was indicted for fraud in 3 different counties. It turned out I wasn't his first target. Sarah lost the house. She lost her blog sponsors. She lost her friends. She moved back with her mother in a small apartment. Leo lives with me now. We make pancakes on Saturday.